Capitalism is the accumulation of capital to accumulate profit and power. There is no limit to capitalism. Anything can be a commodity. Anything can be the source of profit. Anything can be used by a capitalist to make more capital, to grow your power, to increase your stature. This said, any human right, any value to our lives can be taken and used by a capitalist to accumulate more profit. This is why opposition to capitalism has to come from all angles. There is little point saying you oppose the free market in some sectors, but still maintain your support of a system that ultimately has no limit and can commodify anything you wish to preserve. Now, this said, it is good to aim for the tenets of a social democracy. It is good to temper capitalism and try and reform it while, following the principles of pragmatism. It's good to make capitalism more livable because humans have to be more pragmatic and have to survive in the conditions they've been given. But having said that, the ultimate goal has to be an end to the capitalist system. Whilst we maintain this system, anything can and will be used as a commodity, as a source for capitalists to use profit. Healthcare is a prime example of this. In the UK, we have the NHS, which guarantees healthcare to all. However, because of conservative defunding, the NHS is under severe stress. We are seeing people unable to attend meetings with their GP. We're seeing hospitals have ridiculously long and unnecessary wait times, which can lead to many people waiting around for hours for things they really ought to be having seen immediately. We're seeing hospitals lose staff because they don't have the funds to pay them. Meanwhile, the growing sharks of the private industry are growing, as I said. The people who wish to make more profit are winning because as the service is defunded, more and more private contracts are being handed to corporations, thus allowing them to make profit off our human rights. The situation is worse in countries where the healthcare was never nationalized to begin with. In America, people have multi-thousand-pound dollar bills to pay for things they really should be guaranteed as human beings. People unable to even get to the hospital because just getting the ambulance costs too much for them. And this is on top of other things that are commodified, like rent, like food, like electricity. The way we view our society should not be one of pricing out people from the things they need to survive, but of looking after people, of maintaining people's human rights. And to do this, we must deconstruct the system that allows the powerful and the wealthy to consume the majority of the resources, to price out people from what they need to survive. To allow people to have their human rights is a guarantee, not be requiring to sell their labor to someone just to obtain basic human rights and basic survival. And to do this, we must break down the system that allows commodification of these things. We must break down the idea that we must accrue more power, we must accumulate capital. And ultimately, this involves breaking down capitalism, the system that allows the wealthy ruling class, the people who have the power, the resources, the means of production, to control society. Now, it is ultimately something which has to go beyond the call of just reforming capitalism. We can't reform a system that ultimately is based around the commodification of life. The capitalist that says, no, I'm going to maintain healthcare as a human right, is the capitalist that will lose to another capitalist who has a lower limit, who is more willing to privatize the system, like we are seeing in the UK, where the NHS is crumbling because of capitalist funding and privatization. In America, where millions of people are needlessly restricted from basic human rights, basic healthcare, because they can't afford it. Meanwhile, so much wealth exists in the power of the wealthy. So much could be done to help these people, and it isn't being done. And that is a disgrace, but ultimately endemic to capitalism, inherent to a system designed around commodification. So if you are a liberal or a social democrat thinking, yes, I support capitalism, but I want human rights, that's a pretty basic thing to say. But ultimately, it is flawed by the fact that you're supporting a system which, isn't helping people, is actively restricting people from their rights because of the need to make profit. And whilst you have this cancer, this infection in society, whilst it still exists, even to some degree, the potential for threat and danger and erosion of human rights is always there. We must act, and we must act against capitalism if we are to truly temper the problems of human rights not being met. If you truly want healthcare for all, truly want human rights to be guaranteed, and truly want commodification of society and society's essentials to be foregone, we have to ultimately kick the problem out completely. And that involves a complete deconstruction of capitalism. And ultimately, this should be the aim of every person who has a human conscience and a human heart. If we do not remove the need to commodify and privatize and withhold resources and essentials just to make wealthy people wealthier at the expense of workers by taking their labor and consuming it for the capitalist, what society are we but one of inhumane values and disgusting practices? We all deserve better as human beings, and that better life can only come once capitalism is removed and our human essentials are no longer able to be commodified by the ruling wealthy class.